Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Today, I want to demystify the world of digital transformation and ask you, what happens when digital transformation meets environments where every decision is scrutinised, where every dependency matters and every hidden rule inside a legacy system can change the outcome of a program? Because these are questions that many leaders are wrestling with right now as they try to modernize responsibly inside highly regulated industries without creating new risks or breaking what already works. These are risk-adverse industries. And today I'm joined by someone who has built her entire career inside this tension. She's got some fantastic insights, experiences, and is going to share her expertise today. And having got to know her over the last few weeks, she brings a rare blend of technical depth and, or more importantly, human insight to this space, because she specialises in tuning unspoken system behaviour, undocumented workarounds and compliance blind spots into clear, usable solutions that can actually help organisations move from uncertainty to confidence. And her work across many regulated industries has shown that successful transformation depends on truth finding before tool selection, design before motivation, and translation before replacement. So in our conversation today, she's going to lift the curtain on real dynamics that shift digital programs in regulated sectors and explain why legacy systems often hold valuable intelligence, how compliance can actually spark better design, and why cultural change depends on removing ambiguity rather than pushing people harder. So I, for one, am looking forward to hearing more about her perspective from everything I just mentioned to diversity, emotional resilience, and the tech skills that will define the next phase of every digital operation. But before we jump into today's conversation, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for helping make this show possible, because it's their support that allows me to keep producing and sharing over 60 conversations every month across the Tech Talks network. As you all know, I often talk to founders and business leaders who spend months building incredible products. But it's easy to forget how that one overlooked login or unsecured Wi-Fi connection can bring everything crashing down. That's where Nord Layer comes in. It's a business security platform built for the modern hybrid team. No hardware, no complicated rollout, just a simple toggle-ready solution that lets you secure your entire network in minutes. And it does this by combining VPN, access control and threat protection so your people can connect safely from any device and any network and anywhere. So whether you're 5 people or 500, you can scale it within a few clicks and sleep better knowing that your data's protected by the same team behind NordVPN. So if you've been putting off network security because it feels too technical or too expensive, please visit nordlayer.com/techtalksdaily and use the coupon code TechDaily-28 for 28% off your plan. But now, let me officially introduce you to my guest now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi Neil, my name is Adebimpe Ibosiola. My preferred name is Ade, and my superpower is turning messy, high-stake challenges of organizations into usable solutions. I transform complex business and technical ideas into data-driven solutions, especially within regulated environments. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you join me on the podcast today. And digital transformation is a huge topic. We're both located here in the West Midlands as well, so we see and hear about this stuff locally and on an international stage. So I'm curious, when you look at digital transformation, especially in regulated environments, where do you believe most organisations typically go wrong and go wrong right from the beginning? And what does a more realistic starting point look like? Because I think very often people get distracted by the shiny new technology. They want to almost boil the ocean right from the beginning. So what mistakes do you see people making, and where should they be starting?
Right. For that, I would say most organizations make the same fundamental mistake at the start of the digital transformation. They begin with visions instead of a diagnosis. In regulated environments, nothing is ever truly greenfield. You see, you're dealing with decades of hidden logic, manual workarounds, data drifts, undocumented dependencies, and systems that have survived purely because people have learned to compensate for them. The real question should be, what is the real behavior of our present ecosystem? But instead, organizations jump into new tools, they jump into new roadmaps, they jump into new platforms, and all this sits upon an unstable foundation. So you see, I would say that the more realistic starting point is what I call the technical truth-finding path. Before any organization modernizes anything, they need to deeply understand where the data breaks and why it breaks. They need to realize where process drifts from what is documented. They need to be informed of how legacy systems actually behave under pressure. I would also say they need to understand where compliance is interpreted differently across teams. They need to be conscious of which controls exist on paper but not in workflows. And lastly, I would say they need to be aware of where people are performing invisible labor to hold things together. You see, most organizations don't fail at transformation because the technology is wrong. They simply fail because their assumptions were wrong. A slow transformation begins with a clear, unfiltered baseline of reality. We actually need to know what is it we're working with.
Such a good point there, especially around the truth-finding path that you mentioned. I think very often it's not even just the technology, as you mentioned, but it's also about the existing culture that is embedded in teams. And I think many leaders will talk about culture change as a requirement for any transformation project. But again, regulated sectors are often accused of moving too slow or with too much caution. So how do you help teams build sustainable habits while also staying compliant?
You see, most people think culture change starts with motivation, but in regulated environments, it actually starts with a design. Teams move cautiously because mistakes have real consequences. So the goal isn't to push people to change, it is to build the systems and workflows where the right behavior is the easiest behavior. You see, I would say it is doable by embedding compliance into the workflow instead of relying on people's memories.
And again, you mentioned building new systems. I think that's one of the exciting parts of any transformation. But one of the elephants in the room, so to speak, is legacy systems, because it's that technical debt and legacy systems that tend to be the unspoken barrier that nobody wants to talk about or touch or do anything about. And I think we all know of server rooms with a server in there that nobody quite knows what it does, but they just keep it running anyway. So how should organizations better approach modernization when they carry decades of technical and regulatory debt?
Right. You see, people see legacy system as the problem. I would say legacy systems are not the problems. In fact, they are the real MVP, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Legacy systems are not the problem. It's the unmatched complexities inside them. Most organizations try to modernize by replacing technology without first understanding the hidden rules, the data behaviors, the compliance logics. The safest way to modernize when you're carrying years of technical or regulatory debts is to stop thinking about it as a replacement exercise. You instead start thinking about it as a translation exercise. So instead of ripping out old systems, organizations should first decode the logic inside them, the hidden rules, the data behaviors, the timing quirks. For instance, I would say a system may apply a silent 24-hour validation delay to prevent duplicate processing. Okay? These and many more are regulatory interpretations that nobody has documented. but everybody quietly relies on these subtle things. So the right approach isn't replace the old platform. The right approach would be to understand the intelligence of the old platform, to stabilize that intelligence, and then migrate it to the new platform with precision.
And AI has increased the speed of technological change in every organization. And because businesses want to move so much faster, regulation is often seen as somewhat of a blocker. Yet most forward-thinking leaders view it as a design constraint that prompts better solutions. So how can companies maybe reframe compliance as a catalyst for innovation instead of just another overhead?
I know regulation gets a bad reputation because most organizations only encounter it at the end of their design process. So it usually feels like last minute obstacle and everybody goes running helter skelter. Right. I would say that most regulatory and forward thinking leaders would take regulation as a creative constraint. When companies bring compliance into conversations early enough, it actually unlocks innovation. It forces clarity in decision making. It exposes weak assumption and it pushes the team to build products. This product would eventually be able to stand against scrutiny. So some of the most elegant solutions I've ever seen were born because of a regulatory requirements challenged the team too. Most of this products were born out of the need to streamline messy processes. It was born out of the need to scrutinize and to rethink the architecture of the regulatory systems.
And skills shortages are hitting just about every sector too right now. It's a constant struggle getting the right people in place, especially the ones with the right technical skills and indeed soft skills sometimes. So what kinds of cross-functional skills do you think will matter most for regulated industries as they move so much deeper into digital operations and become not just a tech company, but an AI company too?
Yeah, I would say collaboration skills.
Yeah.
Right. Aside your technical skills, aside your coding skills, aside your analytical skills, aside your core skills, I would say collaboration skills would always be a competitive advantage. When the cybersecurity team, the product team, the operation team, and the compliance team speak different languages, nothing moves farther than being able to collaborate. Nothing moves further than being able to collaborate. So the future belongs to cross-functional professionals who can convene those groups, who can translate their needs, and who can build shared accountability. It's the ability to bridge law, and it's the ability to bridge technology. Those who can operate confidently in that space will be the ones to shape the digital evolution of regulated environments eventually.
And although we're in a period of so much high-paced technological change, one of the things that doesn't change is the age-old mantra in IT and business, and that is if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And sustainable change, of course, depends on measurable progress. So what metrics or indeed signals can you tell that a transformation effort is genuinely taking hold rather than just being another short-lived initiative or something caught in pilot phase or struggling to get it over the line? Tell me more about the measuring of success.
Right. In regulated environments like the net zero scheme, I strongly recommend that they do not mistake activities for progress, right? The metrics that matter most fall into three categories, and that would be the data integrity. When I say data integrity, I mean the better lineage tracking of data, which eventually leads to a cleaner settlement. We all know that the main reason for the market hourly wide scheme is to ensure that consumers, electricity consumers or energy consumers are properly settled, right? So I would say operational rhythm, I would say cultural adoption, and I would say data integrity. These basically form metrics of genuine efforts. The truth is, genuine transformation doesn't announce itself with a big bang. It reveals itself through small but persistent signals. Signals such as a fewer escalations, signals such as more predictable outputs, signals such as decisions rooted in trusted data. And when those improvements compound, you know that you're looking at a transformation that is yet to stay and not just an initiative designed to fade off.
And I think many organisations underestimate the emotional journey that comes with digital change. In fact, any change. And the Kubler-Ross famous change curve outlines those 5 emotional stages that most people go through during times of change that typically begin with denial and move on to anger, bargaining, even depression before acceptance comes in, and that age-old phrase, what's in it for me? So how do you help teams manage things like uncertainty, fear, and getting it wrong, and all those pressures that come with operating under strict oversight?
See this play out all the time, especially with the organizations trying to modernize their systems. And one thing we don't talk about enough in digital transformation, especially in regulated environments, is the emotional journey people go through. Technology changes quickly, but humans don't. Teams deal with uncertainty. They deal with imposter syndromes. They deal with the fear of non-compliance and the pressure of getting it right under scrutiny. So I use a blend of human-centered models, to help teams navigate that emotional curve. One of the simplest but most powerful model I use is the Sarah model. And so for each phases, there are ways to navigate it. It reminds us that resistance isn't incompetence. It's a natural response to disruption. So when people worry their mistakes will be audited, the emotional intensity is even higher. The job of a transformational leader is to normalize that curve and guide them through it and not rush them past it. And finally, I emphasize micro wins. Okay, small measurable progresses, like a team resolving their own exceptions for the first time or successfully completing an audit step. So this is the sort of things that are the things that build confidence. It shifts people from fear to competence and competence to pride. Once pride kicks in, the pressure reduces because, they can see that what they're actually capable of is achievable. It then allows them to freely operate in the natural states.
And if we look at the wider industry for a moment, I think we're still seeing far too few people from a variety of different backgrounds, especially in senior roles within regulated sectors. And I think every single tech and business problem requires diversity of thought, people that look at things differently. That's how you get results rather than just a group of people that all sit and think exactly the same. So how can companies create better environments where women in particular can thrive, and how does greater diversity strengthen innovation and problem solving in these high stakes spaces? Because it's so important. We have made progress, but there's so much room for so much more, isn't there?
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Across the wider industry, we still see far too many women in tech, right? And even fewer in senior roles. This is not because women lack the skill or ambition. It's because the environment were not built with them in mind. If companies want more women to thrive, they need to redesign the system. And the first place to start is flexible working, not as a side benefit, but as a strategic enabler. When organizations embed flexible hours, hybrid options, and collaborations, they remove the invisible barrier with open space for women to step into senior roles. I would say that the second piece of it is intentional development of lower cadres. You don't get more women in senior positions if you're not nurturing those at the early and the mid stages. Putting women forward for certifications, technical pathways, system ownerships, and regulatory programs like the Market Alpha Wally White scheme that I've just mentioned These are high exposure spaces that build authority. And when flexibility is the foundation, when the lower cadres are developed with intention, when diversity is treated as a strategic asset, not as an HR metrics, you create an environment where innovation becomes richer, it becomes safer, and becomes more future ready. Because I must say, women bring a little sparkle to the organization process flow. So that's what iTech industries need now more than ever.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. More women, more diversity. These are the things that will strengthen innovation, problem solving, and improving the workplace and solving real problems in the workplace too. And for anybody listening that would like to dig a little bit deeper on anything that we've talked about today, we did squeeze a lot into our conversation, and I'm sure there'll be many people wanting to continue that conversation. Where can they find out more about you, your work, and maybe carry on that conversation?
I mean, I'm just starting to grow my digital footprint, but I would say if you check me out on LinkedIn at Adebimpe Ibosiola, that's Alpha Delta Echo, Bravo Indigo Mama Papa Echo, Ibosiola, Indigo Bravo Oscar Sierra, Indigo Oscar Lima Alpha, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find my profile there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I will include links to your LinkedIn and any contact details there so people can just find out more information. And it is such a crucial topic right now, and it's something we could talk about for hours. I'd love to invite you on next year, see how your journey's evolving, and also hearing more about what you're seeing on the front line, how you're seeing these improvements taking place in regulated industries. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk with me today. Thank you.
Thanks.
But after speaking with my guest there, it's a perfect reminder that transformation in regulated environments is both technical and, most importantly, deeply human. And her ability to decode hidden system logic, support teams through uncertainty, and embed compliance into those everyday workflows, I think that shows what practical leadership can look like when the stakes are much higher. And I also enjoyed that clear point of view on modernisation, a thoughtful understanding of culture, and a more grounded approach that many organisations, I think, can benefit from as they navigate their own programmes. So please, if you'd love to connect with her, I will add links to her LinkedIn. Maybe you can carry on the conversation, learn more about her insights on technology, regulation, and human-centred transformation. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, but please, over to you. What resonated most to you about our conversation today? Where do you see the biggest opportunity to rethink how transformation should work inside regulated industries that are, by their very nature, risk averse? I'd love to hear your thoughts. techtalksnetwork.com. You'll find over 3,500 interviews there, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, just at Neil C. Hughes. So thank you to my guest for sharing her incredible insights, and an even bigger thank you for each and every one of you for tuning in today. See you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. We'll do it all again. Bye for now.